Good evening. Good evening. How you guys doing out there? This Mike back again in the Spotlight Podcast live. Tonight I got a very special guest, man. Co-founder of Sports U, Team Izod. I got Ed Bright in the building tonight, man. The legendary Ed Bright. Ed, thanks for coming on tonight, brother.
Mike, it's a pleasure to be here, man. Thank you for having me, brother.
Man, it's definitely been a long time coming. I had some hitters on here early, man, and I said you on my list of brothers that I gotta get on here, man, to talk about the influence you had in the game and the different lives you touched, man. You were definitely a blessing to the game, man. You know what I mean? And I want to say thank you to myself for over all the support that Sports U gave B-Ball Spotlight over the years, man. You know what I'm saying? Your program helped market my company and help take it to another level. And I always start off my my podcast saying thanks to a person. So I want to say thank you for trusting in me to let your squads participate in my events, man.
Mike, that was a natural, man. That was like, I appreciate it. It's very kind of you to say that, but like that was a natural, man. And, there's certain things you learn early in the game that there's certain places you're supposed to be. And if you ain't in those places, you ain't legitimate. You ain't legitimate. And then, so many tournaments you had right down there in Central and South Jersey. Like, it wasn't like I had to, we didn't have to pay to get on the plane. It was here. Like the spotlight, pardon the pun, was here. It was here. So you got out and you got, 12 and 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds. It's like, it was a no-brainer, man. So I'll reverse that. That's very kind of you. But when you're trying to, as they used to say back then, you're trying to come up. Oh, man, come on. So thank you. But your certain places was the place to be. And, so it wasn't a matter of the money. It was a matter of making sure we could get the money and make sure we had our teams where they were supposed to. And everything was well run. So that was the other side. Everything was well run.
Yeah. Now let's talk about life before Sports U. What was Ed Bright up to leading up to Sports U?
You know what, Mike, Sports U was a it would be easy to say it was a vision. I will say that it was birthed out of wanting to do something great with kids. And I'll say this too, and this is going to sound weird. I tried to play basketball, but I was always the 13th man on a 10-man squad. So sometimes I've always said this jokingly. Sometimes I think I did Sports U because I didn't get enough minutes. Like, I didn't get no minutes. So I wanted a way to stay close to the game. I love basketball. I don't care what the sport is. I've played other sports. Basketball was my heart. So I love that. And then I had a chance. I was thinking, hey, I could build something, or we could build something, because it wasn't just me. We could build something that would be more than just basketball. So, you showing the picture, the guy on the far left, he was a friend of mine for years, and he was a friend of mine when we wasn't always acting like we had some sense. I was in radio for a while. I was one of the radio announcers in New York City. I knew Daryl. Daryl and I met. We used to hang out after Nets games, and so it was funny when we got back together for Sports U, which was the early 2000s. We were different men. We were husbands. We were fathers, things like that. And so I said to Daryl first, I said, Daryl, I'd like to build this program where we can teach life skills and, your history with basketball. You got to remember, he never went to college. He actually was the first person to go straight from high school to the NBA. So he never went to college. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you the story. Daryl was in Martland, Florida. It's right outside of Orlando. And he was well recognized as a senior coming out of high school. And the Philadelphia 76ers came to Daryl and said, Daryl, if you come straight to the 76ers, we'll give you $500,000. Daryl went and told his mother, and they said, boy, you ain't going to the pros. You going to college. You taking your butt to college. So Daryl told him no. The Philadelphia 76ers came back and said, Daryl, if you come to the Philadelphia 76ers and don't go to college, we'll give you $750,000. Now, we're talking a lot of money. And he went to his mama, and his mama said, boy, I done told you once, you ain't going to the Philadelphia 76ers or no NBA. You taking your butt to college. The Philadelphia 76ers came back and said, Daryl, if you sign this contract and come to the Philadelphia 76ers, we'll give you $1 million. Daryl said, I ain't gonna tell my mama nothing. True story. Daryl said, I ain't tell my mama nothing. I signed that contract. So I knew Daryl from back in the day when we used to basically party. Knew Daryl. And so when we reconnected and he was working as a spokesperson for the Nets and I was a season ticket holder with the Nets, I said, Daryl, I want to start this program where we could work with kids and we just want to give them life skills, work with them. And I really started a little program in my community. I live up here in the hills and Upper Montclair, North Caldwell area. And we started that. And I got introduced to a lot of people that way. We were doing a lot of different types of programs. And then one of the members of Naughty by Nature, KJ, he's the disc jockey. He's the one that spins the turnstiles, the wheels of steel, as I used to
the DJ. Yeah.
Right. He knew Brian Coleman. So he said, listen, I got a friend. He's an assistant coach at St. Anthony. And he knows basketball, and KG had his son playing with us, who was not a good basketball player. So it tells you about the quality of team we had. And Brian came in, and Brian bought into what we wanted to do more than basketball, real life skills. Help, I'm a businessman now, and helping them become good skills, good etiquette, good protocol. And make them realize that there's life after basketball. And Daryl was really big on that. You got to remember, Daryl was really big on that. Life after basketball. He used to say that ball gonna stop bouncing. But once Brian came in, I'm like, oh, hell, we can get the best players. We can get Hurley kids. I'm keeping it real, Mike. I'm like, we can get Hurley kids. And I'm a competitive guy. I'm a competitive guy in business. I'm a CEO of a company. I'm very competitive. And Brian at first was like, and I'm sure Brian's told you, that was my idea. I literally said, if we're going to do this, I want to be the Duke of AAU.
Oh, 100%. 100% he said that.
I want to be, I'm telling you, I would always say, if we're going to do this, I don't do nothing halfway. And, sometimes that has been my downfall.
Mine too.
Praise God. That was at that point I'd had my life, direction. I'm married, I had my own son in it. So I wanted to be the Duke of AAU. And so a lot of things came together. I'm a businessman. So I'm not really, a lot of people that are in basketball came up through basketball and they're working with the kids. And a lot of them have their own kid in it or things like that. I came into it as a businessman with relationships. And now I got Daryl Dawkins, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to put this out here early. I've met some of the greatest coaches in the world. I never knew a better coach than Brian Coleman.
I know.
I give Hurley his props. I'm talking about New Jersey coaches. I give Colecchio their props. I give Turco his props.
No.
Name the coach. I've never known a young man who was able to spill fire in these kids and at the same time be the guy that they all want to hang out with and just shoot the Willy Bobo. I've never knew. Brian had a gift. He was a king, man. He had a gift. And I'll say this too, and I know you'll get into it. We used to fight tooth and nail.
I know, man. Him got so close over the last 6-7 years. We got tight.
Man, Mike, we used to fight. Daryl was the ambassador. So I'm going to say this too. We were able to get money and sponsorship like no other program in America quickly. Quickly. Because I was conscious of the social agenda. See, everybody gets in the basketball AAU and they figure, let me get some players so I can get some sneakers. I went the different route. I was sitting down with CEOs of multi-billion-dollar corporations and saying, hey, yes, they play basketball, but I want to do something different for these kids. I want them to learn how to be gentlemen and good fathers. I want to make sure they get good grades. I want to make sure they understand there's more than basketball. So That was my driver. And then I hooked up with the president of IZOD. You remember I told you I was a season ticket holder of the Nets. They played in IZOD Center, and I got to know Alan Sirkin. And every time I was sitting next to him, I was telling him about my kids and the AAU program. And so we immediately got sponsorship then, and we'll get into a little bit later. But at one point, we had sponsorship for years from IZOD, Philip Van Heusen, and Under Armour. Both of them in the same sandbox. 2 different clothing brands, giving us both money and product. When we traveled, my kids traveled with blazers and ties and shirts and khakis. I've got pictures to show you. Karl Anthony Towns, you name it. Wade, Spencer. You know, we traveled in a way like we would go into places and people would come up and say, "I just love looking at your program." And also the way you dress is the way you feel. So we had young people that love that. And I always said, if you want a program, I would tell parents, and this is how I would sell parents, if you want a program that will be a supplement to everything you want your child to learn in a safe place, being trained at the highest level of basketball, then I'm your program. If you're just worried about them playing and, you know, whatever it is, and, you know, because, you know, a lot of programs, you know, they got that street image and all that. That wasn't what I wanted to teach my kids. And don't get me wrong, I had some brothers who from the street, part of our program, but that's not what we were about, you know. So
and y'all plan
early emphasis.
And y'all plan of attack. What high schools and coaches early on were y'all targets to say, like, we got to make sure that we establish relationships with these guys?
You want to know something, Mike? That's a great question because it was spread out. Obviously, early on, we were able to get Lucky Jones from St. Anthony. Lucky representatives, Lucky, Najee Brown, Sherrod Oaks, kids you may have never heard of. Then we were able to get, and don't get me wrong, and somebody I'd approach any parent. Like, I just go up and say, "Hi, my name is Ed Bryant. I'm the president of you. We're building the best." I just, you know, I'd run my line of whatever. And I mean, Angelo Mangiero was a 2-sport star. Angelo was a football player at Roxbury, and he wound up being the starting center for Penn State. But he was a hell of a basketball player at 6'5", 270. White boy. Power player. I mean, you know, then I had Chris Chamis. I mean, I had kids, you know, John Caprio from Seton Hall Prep. Kids that, you know, these weren't the kids everybody, but these were great ball players. So everybody always thinks you had to have, you know, the 5-star, the 4-star. And then if you got good coaching, you got to remember, like Brian and some of the coaches we had early on, Joe Whalen, Frank Burno. I mean, we didn't have 5 stars. We had no stars. But they knew how to play basketball. And they were coached real. One of the secrets to our success and our plan of attack, that there was every step along the way. I thank God that I was able to have some of the best coaches in the business. And I had a great leader in Brian Coleman. Brian had a gift of being able to relate to everybody. There was nobody that did not respect Brian Coleman. Now, there was a lot of people that, you know, were tired of me, but I had Brian. And there was no, and then, you know, you got Daryl, who would love on the kids. And this was important too. Daryl would love on the parents. So Daryl would be able to manage the parents, because you got to remember now, parents are sitting there. We're at tournaments, you know, as we began to really get that player and, you know, live periods and things like that. And now we got high school players and everything. We'd be walking to a gym, and here we come in, and here's Daryl Dawkins. So you got to remember now, most programs don't have that.
Back then, especially back then.
Right. And they all knew Daryl, Chocolate Thunder. They all knew, and he was that. Daryl was that same personality that was from the planet Lovetron when he was in the NBA, when he was working with us. Everywhere we went, Daryl, you know, people don't know, we went to Iceland, places people don't go, you know, with Daryl and all types of things. So it brought a lot of coverage to us, which is important when you're trying to sell parents on a program. maybe their kid, and this is another thing, when you do get to that elite level, you're usually, if you're 17U and 16U, we would have 17 and 16U teams with 12 players. And they all were starters at their high schools.
How was y'all able to sell them to play those other roles with your program?
Brian would be like, Brian's line was, everybody going to eat. Brian would always say, everybody going to eat. And he'd always say, you got to make the bus. So even in practices, we had real practices. I mean, I'd be sitting up there. I done worked the whole day. I done been all over the place in sales meetings. I'm sitting in the gym in a suit. Done been on the road all day. And we going from 6 o'clock to 9:30. I mean, Brian, you know, and I'll name the coaches: Brian, Joe Whalen, Reggie Carter, Franz Pierre Luis, Frank Berno. I mean, I can go right down the line. I mean, we had some coaches, and these were real coaches. You know, we had Craig Carter, who's coaching. I mean, I can name coaches that worked with us because they wanted to get a shot back at college. So the visibility they had coaching a 17U or 16U sports U team gave them the chance to get back into college. But we began to get spread out. So, and I can name some of the players that were older. We formed some great relationship. We had a great relationship with Bob Hurley. We had a great, now watch this, we had a great relationship with Phil Colecchio. We formed a great relationship with Dave Boff.
Now, when you went in and talked to these guys, did Brian form these joints, or you was the one to come in to get the?
I would be the one that would go in initially. I would be, because you got to remember, Brian was known for St. Anthony.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you got to
be like, okay, you want me to send my kids to Sports U? Like,
yeah.
You look at this picture here. Look at the picture on the right. You got Wade Baldwin and Marcus Towns, which is St. Joe's Metuchen. You got Jarrett, who is oh my God, Seton Hall Prep. You got Taryn Smith, St. Anthony. You got Quadri Moore, Linden. You've got I forget my kid's name here though, but he was at Seton Hall Prep. All different schools. These are you've got 1, 2, Safi, Jarrett Nickens, Patrick School. Jarrett Nickens is right over Ox Shoulder, right there, right next to Safi. So you, in this picture alone, you got 8 different high schools.
Yeah, y'all was definitely able to bring those kids together. And did y'all go after a certain kind of kid?
It got to a point, Mike, like I said, maybe call it ego, call it competitive nature. I wanted the best of the best. Brian would say, Ed Bright, we got to get this kid. Like, at first, Brian was very hesitant because Brian wanted to do a local, nice thing. And I was like, no, man, if we're going to do this, we got money, we got uniforms, we got sponsorship, we got product. We're going to do it right. And you had to earn those things. But Brian, so it came to the point where Brian came all the way in. He bought all the way in. He'd be like, yo, Ed Bright, we need this kid, or we need that kid. So I would be like, I remember I was chasing kids at St. Benedict's when Danny Hurley was the coach at St. Benedict's. Danny was the coach at St. Benedict's. Okay.
I remember that.
He wouldn't call me back. I mean, I'd get a coach's phone number. I'd call the school. They ain't know me from a can of paint. But you got to remember, you know, I'm a sales professional. So
yeah, so you could definitely deal with people saying no. That ain't about that. And I'm gonna call you back tomorrow. We gotta talk about this again.
Listen, well, you gotta remember something. I'm showing up at a game. I'm in a $1,000 suit. I'm a businessman.
At the spotlight with the fur coat on.
That one too. I'm like, okay. And I'm going over and I'm like, listen, I'm at Bright and here's what we have. And I know your kid is playing. I remember the only coach that I ever got a really bad response from, and eventually I got all his kids, was Kevin Boyle.
Talk about that. Talk about that. What happened?
He blew me off. I wanted to get what's the name? Kid Gilchrist.
And
Kid Gilchrist was a sophomore. And Brian has said, we got to get that kid, even though he's at St. Pat's, we got to get that kid. And so I pushed up on Kevin Boylan. He just blew me off. Like, I didn't like it. It seemed personal the way he blew me off. And, I wasn't being affrontive or being rude. I would never do that. You follow what I'm saying? But he was the only coach.
But how Kevin Boyle gonna want to deal with you with Brian Coleman? Come on, Ed.
Because think about it. You got Patrick St. Anthony. You got Patrick.
Exactly. Come on, Ed. You think he gonna really send Michael Gilchrist to a team with the St. Anthony assistant coach is coaching?
Guess what? Though? Chris Chavanis gave me DeAndre Bembry, Jared.
Yeah, that's Chris Chavanis, but Kevin wasn't doing that.
Right. At one time I had Otis Livingston, Jared Nickens, DeAndre Bembry. I mean, they all got their scholarships through Sports U.
Now let's talk about how did y'all sit down and get this deal done? What was the process? How did that happen? Like, how did y'all go from the thing to actually getting on the Under Armour deal and getting on their circuit?
So, Danny Hurley became the coach at Wagner. Danny and Bobby Hurley. I'm already beginning. You got to remember, Brian's at St. Anthony, so I'm beginning to get on Papa Bob's radar. And he came to a practice. He came to one of our practices and saw the way the practice was. Saw how intense, how professionally run it was. Then after practice that day, I had Peter Harvey come in. Peter was the former attorney general in New Jersey. I had him come in after the practice, and we did an hour-long thing. You can look it up on YouTube. Peter Harvey, Team Izod, Sports U. And he talked about how to handle yourself with authority. What he did as the attorney general of New Jersey. And Bob was blown away by that. Bob was like, okay, these kids are doing a lot more than basketball. So he went to Danny and said, hey, I like what these kids are doing at Sports U. Danny came to a couple of our tournaments, and he wanted a kid by the name of Mario Moody from East Orange campus.
I know who you're talking about.
He wanted Mario bad. Mario, at that time, the father, Papa Mario, we were going to send him to St. John's, to Mike Jarvis. Remember when Mike Jarvis and his son were at St. John's? Make a long story short, Danny wanted the kid. So Danny was like, listen, if we can get this kid here, we're sponsored by Under Armour. We will introduce you to Under Armour. So he introduced us to a gentleman by the name of Ted Gladue. And Ted, was grateful that Mario wound up going to Wagner. And Ted was the head of the AAU basketball for Under Armour. And we got Under Armour. That's how it works. You know what I'm not saying, Mike. That's you know what I'm saying, and you know what I'm not saying, So Mario wound up going, and I will say this: they really helped Mario get qualified, because literally, there were things put in place. Mario was academically allergic, and they really put things in place to make sure that he was doing his homework, that somebody was staying on top of him, the whole bit. So Wagner wound up being initially the right school. The only problem was 2 years in, Danny left and went to Rhode Island. Danny and Bobby left and went to Rhode Island. And then obviously, you're going there. These kids at that time, there was no NIL or anything to really keep a kid there. They're following the coach. And eventually Mario left Wagner and wound up transferring to Bethune-Cookman in Florida. So
now you got Under Armour. Y'all rolling. How much did that increase y'all visibility and the type of kids y'all could recruit?
Well, yeah, I still don't think there's a circuit as good as Nike. I still think Nike is the better circuit just because of the TV visibility. Just because of the TV. You got to remember that the circuit is going to be aligned with the pros, that they can have the pros with the circuit. Under Armour only got Steph. That's the only one they got. They only got Steph. Thank God he's Steph Curry. I mean, he's amazing. He's the greatest to ever play the game, many feel, but they didn't have the visibility of Nike. I think that we began to get rolling, number one, because we had great coaching, Mike. I know a lot of people say, oh, we coach. Nah, they weren't coaching at the level that we were. I always have lived on 5 P's. Part of my recovery in life has been that proper preparation prevents poor performance. So we adapted that. I mean, we adapted that. We adapted a culture of respect. Little things, man. Even before we travel, things we did. There was prayer. There was the parents bought in. If you remember, I said I always told parents, if you want a program that's going to be a great supplement to everything you want your child to have, with great coaching and always in a safe space, then Sports U is for you. I said it just like that. And they would see it. They would see it. We'd have award dinners and all different types of things. We'd award our number one academic player. We call it Sportsman of the Year. Keith Kirkwood won that. Spencer Wise won that.
Keith Kirkwood. Wow, that's man.
That tells you how far. Listen, we had people coming up from Atlantic City.
I remember Keith Kirkwood. Turned out to be a nice white out at Hawaii.
That's right. We had Jolene Montague and Dante DeMungia from Atlantic City. Okay. We had what's his name come up from North Carolina and play with us a little bit. Bam Adebayo. I mean, we had kids coming in from all over to play for us. I mean, and we, let's face it, we were well funded. We were well funded. So, we could support our players and our program. And I mean, we were well funded right down to, our 9 and 10-year-olds. I mean,
Indeed.
Most programs can't say that.
Now, when you came into the game, it was already a big bad wolf when y'all came in. Well, they were called to the Players Basketball Club, then the New Jersey Players. Were they your target when you first got into it?
Yes.
Explain that, and what was your and what did you plan to do with the target?
I saw them as the standard, and I told Jimmy that. I told Jimmy that. So yes, they immediately. My opinion, and this is not me knocking the players. I had something happen, and I'll share with you that really changed my thinking. I saw them as wanting to profit off the kids. That was my feeling. I might be wrong. And I'm willing to admit that I probably was wrong because Jimmy has had sustainability. I think he's coaching at Montclair Immaculate. He's stayed in the game. Okay. But I thought we were doing something different. And I was in the Roselle Catholic Gym one day, Mike. I'll never forget this as long as I live. And Isaiah Briscoe was in there. And he came up to me, he said, Coach Bright. And I always had a good relationship with him, even though he played for the players. Him and Kyle, him and Kyle were always very respectful for me, of me. So I was like, okay, well, maybe the leadership of the players isn't, but these kids are. And I'll never forget this, Mike. Isaiah came up to me and said, Coach Bright, can I tell you something? I said, sure, son. He said, why are you and Jimmy always fighting? He said, no, he said it. He said, you guys both have good programs and you both do good for us. He said, why are you always fighting? And I looked at him. Now, this is a kid.
Wow.
Telling me straight up, why are you always acting like this? That's what he told me. And he said it in a spirit of love and respect. I'll never forget it. We were in the gym at Roselle Catholic after a practice. And I lied at the moment. I ain't gonna lie. I lied. I said, well, I'm not fighting with Jimmy. But he was right. And I'll never forget. I called Jimmy and we went to, what's the Italian restaurant that they have? Oh my God. I'm getting old, but what's the Italian restaurant where the Olive Garden? We went to Olive Garden and broke bread. And I said to Jimmy, and Jimmy will tell you this. I said, Jimmy, first of all, I want to ask you to forgive me. And I promise you, I will never, ever speak ill in any way of you. Ever again. And that had to be about 2011, 2010, somewhere around there. Because everybody knew it. I would bash them and talk bad about them. And this was a black man trying to do right by kids just like I was. just don't
Mm.
have us. I just, figured, the only way to compete is to you got to do more, be more, say more, be bigger. And I really had to learn that the sun shines on everybody. So,
I respect your vulnerability in talking about this and being
oh,
being able to admit where you came up short at, brother. For real, for real.
he told me, I'd never forget it. He was a kid. He had to be a sophomore at Roselle Catholic. He told me straight. He said, Coach Bright, he said, man, can I ask you? I said, why you and Jimmy always fighting? And you could see it was distasteful to him. He said, you both have great programs. He said, you have a great program. And his father, George, was always like, listen, if we wasn't with Jimmy, we'd come over there in a heartbeat. He said that we wouldn't go anywhere else. If you remember George Briscoe, he'd be like, listen.
That was my boy.
George told me multiple times. I respect what you guys are doing in Sports U, Coach Bright. He said, I respect it so much. You guys are doing it right. And we always have people say we were doing it right. And doing it the right way. But I'll never forget that moment. I'll never forget that as the Bible says, from the mouth of babes, that young man told me, why are you acting like a clown, man? It's not necessary.
Now, when I talked to Brian, he told me a little story about how y'all was flirting with Nike for a little bit.
Yes.
And he said this man over here made that phone call to get y'all thing kind of shut down on he made that call to get y'all shut down. You want to chime in on that a little bit?
He did. And there was a lot of things in the program, Mike, that Brian ran. And, my job, I had several jobs. Number one was to make sure that we stayed well funded. And to make sure that anything we did that showed us in that good social, showed us doing, community things, showed the grades they were getting. I would always bring the sponsors into our awards dinners, things like that. And then of course, making sure, everybody had a plane ticket, a hotel room, all those things. We had a team to do that. A lot of the things with the sponsorship, Brian had a great relationship with Nick Blatchford. I had a great relationship with Izod, with Alex Durkin and Ken Duane, and Emmanuel Chirac, the CEOs and presidents of Philip Van Heusen. So Brian was more intimate to the Under Armour, Nike battles. And yes, Jimmy did shut us down, but and I knew about it. But we were good.
Indeed.
We were good. We could have gotten to Nike. Listen, we had opportunity with Adidas. There were a lot of people that wanted to get in with us. Our deal with Under Armour, there was only one deal that was better, and that was DC Assault. And that's because they were right down there where Kevin Plank is, and they're right there in Maryland, and the DM they would get. No other program in the country had a better deal than us. And then you got to remember, we've got a very attractive deal from Izod. So it wasn't like we were hurting for anything.
Then around, I want to say, I'm trying to remember what year that was. Maybe around 2011, somewhere around there. Me and Reg had a conversation down in Atlanta, down in Virginia, about building a powerhouse.
You did. That's you. And then
that's you. You guys came and decided to go full-fledged into the middle school arena, and it changed the game because when the Supreme Team arrived, y'all was like the first program that went all the way in on middle schoolers, where y'all was flying them places and doing this. They ain't have to pay no money. It was this. Tell me what convinced you to say, I'm about to put my chips in this and let's try to get this going.
Mike Melton and Reggie Carter. That was your listen. When they brought it to me, and they were like, listen, we're gonna grow them up. I remember people used to say, excuse the pun, from other programs, they would say, yo, that's your money team. But the reality was that we were willing to make that investment. And remember, once again, even when you look at these pictures, all these kids could play. All these kids would be stars on their own teams. Look at some of the kids that are there. You got Javon Quinterly, Nas Reed, Tariq.
I remember when we sat down and came up with the plan.
Listen.
You know what I mean? And I was like, we got to get this done, and we got to get it done right, and we got to. So this is what we gonna do. And he told me what he wanted to do. Then I came up with the chart of players that we was gonna go get, and we gonna put this thing together. We started making the calls. It was after they lost that sixth grade nationals when he had we run,
Right.
or it could have been Isaiah. I think it was, but he said I can't go out like this no more. I'm trying to win the national title. Then we called King Street. I called Tiba Dad, and then we went and got them. Then it was on from there. We started putting everything together, and we had to come up with a name.
Mike, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know how everybody pulled that off. What I will say, Reggie Carter was a tremendous coach.
Oh, 100%.
Tremendous coach. Good, bad, or indifferent. Because, Reggie and I had history, and we fought like cats and dogs. I wish our relationship was better.
Mm-hmm.
But Reggie Carter was a hell of a coach and a good businessman. So he had that discipline. You understand what I'm saying? He had that. Every coach we had, when you've got coaches that are more than basketball, you can do a lot. You got to remember, a lot of AU programs, all the coaches, all they know is basketball, or they're still trying to live their life through the kids. Reggie Carter, Brian Coleman, Joe Whalen, Frank Berno, Eric Harriel, I can name them. These are guys that had lives. Yes, basketball, they loved the game, but they always saw it as a way to give back to kids what was freely given to them coming up. So Reggie Carter had that. He understood that, and he was able. It takes a lot of things to create a great coach. So having a Brian and a Reggie at the same time, like, you had to fall in line, because even when you look at these kids here, I could tell you stories about every one of the kids in this picture. Every one of them, from Louis King right there to Atiba to Nas. Every one of these kids could play. Not one that couldn't play and be a star in his own right. So, when you and Reggie put this together, I think the fact that we already had other strong leadership. And then here's the other thing that people don't give credit like they're supposed to. The parents have got to buy in.
Oh, 100%.
They got to buy in. No, hey, listen, we're going to take the kids and they ain't got to pay for anything. And we're going to do these tournaments and you're going to get these fat Nike sneakers and you're going to get these uniforms and blah, blah, blah. The parents have got to say, I'm good here. I'll remember.
Because this was the plan he wanted to win a national title and I wanted to make Basketball Spotlight the national brand of the country. So we was like, listen, I'm going to make this team the most visible team in the country. Everybody's going to know who they are. They're going to be like rock stars. And the whole plan was to get Carlos and them to come to the East so we could have that game. And we planned it 2 years in advance.
I remember.
We planned it. And then
was it the game against what's his name? That's who's in the pros now? Was Nas and Bagley?
Marvin
Bagley. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that may be the most watched. What was it? 8th grade or 9th grade? That may be the most watched 8th grade game, AAU game in the history of AAU.
100%. 100%.
Now we had one other one. I'll give you one other one. And I think I sent you the video. We had another one at NY2LA in Mequon, Wisconsin. On our team was Karl Anthony Towns, Quadri Moore. Now you got to remember, at that time, some people thought Quadri was better than Karl in the state. Some people thought he was better. Wade Baldwin, Spencer Wise, Kenny. Oh my God, what's Kenny Grant? 6'9", 260, Winter Rider. We had a crew. On their team was Cliff Livingston. What's his name? Okafor.
Oh, I remember that game when y'all played them.
Jalen Brunson.
Woo!
Yes.
Woo.
Yes. Mike, in the gym, on the live period now, on our side, it's us and parents and fans and everything. On the other side of the gym, there was every Division I coach in America and their number one assistant. From Calipari to Kay to you name it. You name it. Every Division I coach in America was at that game. It was just a showcase game. They flew us up, they flew them in, and it was unbelievable. And it was a last second game. They beat us like in the last second. What's his name? Turned it over. I think Taron Smith turned it over. They were able to get a steal, and they won by 1 point. So we had that strong visibility at the top. We were already doing things. And then when you guys decided to create the Supreme Team, I know it was gonna. And you got to remember, you were able to capitalize on that because they were local. So
100%.
And there was no NIL, but you would have sort it was some NIL. The way people were putting together their teams to come in. I remember Reggie took a group down to Utah and all types of
places. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And people started calling them. People started calling them to come in. You know what I mean? People started calling them to come in. Yeah. And that's what was the crazy part. That's what the crazy part was about it. Like down there was just so, city was just so it was like, because we hyped it up because we had went out there and they played them in the Nationals the year before in the Final Four, and Reggie and them beat them. So now I knew that was the plan, because I knew that Carlos had to come. You get what I'm saying? Like he had to come because he wanted to get that, because he wanted to get that revenge. So that's what the whole plan was. We got to go down there. Y'all got to be good enough to beat them, to make sure that he comes back down here.
Without great coaching, though, Mike, none of that works, though. You know so many teams, just like I do, teams that they just throw the ball out and let them play. They're still doing that. They trying
to check out. We about to check a little bit of it out right now. This thing was crazy, Ed. Man, Gene shut down the gym. Everybody was in there, bro. Look at Darius Garland.
Yeah. Ain't that something? Look at it. And Darius and Nas are real close to this set.
I know.
Very close.
That's crazy. Look at Nazi, man.
And these are 8th graders now.
I know. The first game both teams had on all black. Ain't nobody want to change. And then they played again in the step. It was crazy, man.
Yeah, man.
And then your boy hit the game winner at the end. Winnerly with a 3.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Jaja could go now. Jaja could go.
Yeah, man. Them was the years, man. That was like, that game right there just took us to the whole another level. To like the whole, everything just went skyrocketed, man. And that team came up, man. How was it in y'all camp when all this buzz was going on with these young boys?
You know what? I stayed focused on the mission. I always tried to stay focused on the mission at hand, Mike. Mm-hmm. I took great pride in what we did with our kids off the court. Mm. And I think that's what, now watch this, I think that's what made a Phil Colecchio okay with his kids playing on a team with kids from St. Joe's Metuchen, or Bob Hurley okay with him playing with his kids playing with kids from the Patrick School. And you know what I'm saying? And I forget the coach's name. I know his first name is Kevin at Seton Hall, being okay with Spencer and some of the other kids playing with us. You follow what I'm saying? So the programs, they were real, and they were tangible, and you could see, kids learning everything from how to introduce themselves, how to build good study habits, how to handle themselves when confronted by the police, and I wasn't afraid to make changes myself. We had I forget the college that hoop group uses out in central Pennsylvania, Stroudsburg. I forget, it's a Division III school.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some kids that were out there, and they did something they shouldn't have done. I'll just leave it like that. And one of them was a 6'10" kid. I won't share his name. And the other one was a 6'3" guard. And they wound up winning a state championship here in New Jersey. So I'm not going to really share the school name. But they got caught out there with a plastic gun. And something was missing from the dorm. And so they turned up all the beds, and they got this black plastic gun that looks like a real gun. Now, I'm like, hey, man, you 6'10". And if you got that in your waistband and you out in Pennsylvania or Florida do you realize the cops will shoot everybody?
Yeah, you would get killed.
They'll kill everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, it ain't real, Coach Bright. No, it ain't real. If he'd said I made a mistake, I would have kept him in the program. This is just an example. But he was like, it ain't real. Why you got a problem with it? But that's how these type of guns, fake guns, they use to rob gas stations and stores and whatever. I had to let both of them go. You follow what I'm saying? So I wasn't afraid to do that either. Now, I eventually brought them back a year later. But even their mothers called me like, Coach Bright, what are we going to do? If you don't have the program, it'll be his life. It'll ruin his life. And I stayed in contact even when they were off the program. But, so we did things that were more than basketball, Mike. And a lot of people may see that, oh, that's crap. No, that's very real. For me, that was and I had the type of coaches that would buy in on that. And then I fight with Brian every day because Brian, like Ed Bright, you always use his full name, Ed Bright.
100%.
Ed Bright, we only need 10 kids. But I'd be like, yo, Brian, if we put these other 2 kids on, they really want to play. We got 13 kids on the 17U. We got 13 kids on the 16U and 15 kids on because they wanted, like you said, I'm answering your question. Now they want to play with Sports U.
Yeah.
Now they want to be with Sports U.
Now, these kids, the middle school thing was good and it was dandy. But once they get into high school, this thing turns into business now. How did y'all, what was the obstacles that came with it? And how hard was it to keep everything together?
Well, first of all, this picture here was done by Brian. Brian had, aside from being musically gifted, aside from being a tremendous basketball coach, he was very creative with graphics and all these other things. A lot of our artwork was done by Brian. So, and he would send things to me. I'd be like, man, how do you come up with all this? So that was his thing. But it became a business, and we ran it like a business. Okay. Now, I'm a businessman. I may not be the best businessman, but I actually, right now, even I run a global business. I'm a businessman. So Brian was, it's great when you've got multiple people who are operating, and I use this term a lot, in their zone of genius.
Okay.
So, and we all have a zone of genius. Brian was able to, great coach, great communicator, a natural love for the kids. And then he had that musical background. He had that hip hop background. Sometimes they call it spitting. He'd be spitting. We'd be on road trips and he's spitting and, doing his thing and whatnot. And then he had this gift with the graphics and so we became a business. We promoted these kids in such a way. Everybody knew who they were. And then you got to remember, they came out of basketball spotlight. So as good as they were, you had 10 other great teams wanting to be them. And looking at them.
Indeed. Now, when it came down to their recruiting, were you involved in that? And at any time that people try to come package deal, did Rutgers really try to recruit these dudes, or they just was like, nah, we ain't gonna be able to.
They wanted all 5. There's an article out there in the Star Ledger. You can look it up where they told when Eddie became coach, Eddie Jordan. They told Eddie, and I knew Eddie from back in the day. I knew Eddie from back in the day. You understand what I'm saying? I knew Eddie from back in the day. Okay, without me saying. So Eddie, him knowing me in my 20s and 30s, and then meeting me again in my 40s and 50s was a little different. And so I don't know where Eddie's head was, because I went to him immediately when he became the Rutgers coach. Then when Steve Peichel became the Rutgers coach, everybody told him, you need to get with Sports U. Because you got kids right here in Jersey. You got the best kids in the country right here in Jersey. But it's hard to get kids, and I'm going to answer your question in saying that it was hard to get kids to stay in New Jersey. Now, I see what he did recently with these two number 1 and number 2 kids in the country. But NIL is helping that. So whether it's one of the pharmaceutical companies or whatever that's investing in the school, because some of these kids are getting $1 million a year.
Yeah, I heard.
Oh,
yeah,
no,
we're gonna get to that. Yeah, we're gonna get to NIL in the
field. These kids are getting $1 million a year, $2 million a year to play college basketball. So, in my opinion, yes, I did have influence into where a kid went to school, but I'm going to tell you what I based it on. I didn't base it on the size of the school. I based it on the coach, and I based it on the geography, and I based it on one other principle. First of all, there's certain coaches I liked. Just going to tell you. I liked Craig Robinson, Obama's brother-in-law, when he was at Oregon State. Okay, the kid that went the furthest away to college from Sports U was Hallis Cook. He went to Oregon State. Now, I also was comfortable with that because Hollis was emotionally mature. A lot of coaches don't take that into consideration, okay? A lot of times when you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing and getting things from colleges that maybe you shouldn't be getting, you drive a kid that way. I never did that, never did it. So I was really comfortable because Coach Craig Robinson told me, Eddie, I just want a Sports U kid. I want a Sports U kid. I like what you're doing with these kids off the court. Another coach that I fell in love with, you may not feel this way, was Fran Dunphy from Temple. I like Fran. Number 2, multiple reasons. So Josh Brown, Quentin DeCozy, Josh Pierre-Louis, I can go right down the line, all went to Temple. Reason why? Number 1, they was close enough so that if they was acting up, they're an hour away. Their parents could get down there and put their foot up their ass, and so could I. They're only an hour away. And I know that coach, Fran Dunphy, I know that coach wants to be able to continue to recruit New Jersey.
That's the key that I'll be trying to get people to understand. You gotta have that. You gotta have the AU program. The director gotta have that leverage because you know that coach gonna want to come back and see y'all again.
He want to come back and see me. He gonna want to come back and talk to these families. He's gonna want to show that he was successful with that kid. Now, I'll tell you a mistake that happened, and I'll say this, and I'm comfortable in saying it. I wanted Quadri to go to Shaw up at Seton Hall when he was under Kevin Wilson. I wanted Quadri Moore to go to Seton Hall. Okay, why? Because he needed to grow up some more. And he had just had a baby. So I, as a father and as a husband, did not want him to go somewhere else to shirk that responsibility. And Shaw was going to make it so that Qua could be a good student, be a great basketball player, and be able to be a good father.
Now, when it came down to these kids picking their schools, especially King, Javon Quinterly, and Nas Reed, how difficult was it to really get the parents to see your vision? Or at some point, did you just turn it off and just let them do what they wanted to do?
Well, first of all, with Nas, I forget the name of the girl that he was dating. But if you saw her, you'd go to LSU too. I forget her name. She was 6'5". And Mike, let me tell you how we met this girl. We was at, you remember Elite 24, that Under Armour?
Yeah, New York. Yeah.
So I remember, I think I shared with you earlier before we started that Rudy became like his guardian. Me and Rudy are sitting at the game in New York, in Brooklyn, at whatever, the Brooklyn Yard where they have it. And I forget her name. And I'm sure somebody on here may remember. Anyway, she came walking by. And Rudy, now we old men, we sitting there like, oh, Jesus, Lord Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I mean, she walked by, and Nas is playing the game. So one day I'm over Rudy's house. We talking. He lived in Newark on Quinton. I forget the name of the street. I think it's Quinton, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we in Newark in the Weekway section. We sitting at his house, and Nas said, "Hey, he called me Unc, and he called Rudy. He said, yo, Unc, my girl gonna be coming through soon." So we're like, all right, cool. That girl came walking up in the house, the one that we saw. Rudy said, "Great Caesar's ghost." This 6'5" stallion walked by. They went in the kitchen. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And he followed her to LSU. Now, not to say that LSU wasn't influential in the decision, but what I'm telling you is, I would have went to LSU. Okay, and it was LSU, so he went there. Luther made his own decision. Because you got to remember, he originally went to Ohio State. One thing that I never tried to do, if a parent came to me and said, "Ed, what do you think?" I would offer my 2 cents. If a coach came to me and said, because you know how it goes, "Ed, can I recruit him? Do you think we have a chance to recruit him? Would you make an introduction?" I'll make an introduction. There were some kids. Yes, I was probably 90% of the reason why they went to a particular school. Josh Brown, intimately involved with Temple. Hallis Cook, I was so happy to have him go play for the President of the United States brother-in-law. You follow what I'm saying? Spencer Wise, Princeton, and he was the Ivy League Player of the Year 3 years in a row. You follow what I'm saying? I wanted John Caprio to go to, and this is going way back, to go to Presbyterian. He wound up going to Georgetown on no scholarship. His junior year, John Thompson gave him a scholarship. Very happy for him. They're neighbors of mine up in North Caldwell. Lucky Jones. I'm trying to remember what's the name? What's the school out in Pittsburgh?
Robert Morris.
Robert Morris. He went to Robert Morris. Najee Brown. He was fine. He was a Division III player. He went to William Patterson. So yes, I wasn't. I can name every college that they went to. There were some. Absolutely, I was intimately involved in the decision with the parents.
Now, Nazi hits LSU. Quinterly selects Arizona.
No, he selected Arizona. Right.
Yeah, and then, boom, this drops.
Yeah.
What's going through your heart and in your mind when you heard their names mentioned? What's your first response? How are you feeling? Were you ever even contacted about this situation by the FBI? Anything?
I was never contacted. Never contacted. Okay. And I'm going to tell you why. The investigation focused on a conversation that Jaja, I call him Jaja. Jaja's mom had. It wasn't a conversation I had. In that conversation, they said, usually, we deal with this with the AAU team. And I guess whatever happened, they said, no, we don't want the AAU team involved in this whatsoever. Thank God. So we were never involved. I know they tried to do an investigation with Nazi at LSU, and they were able to establish that there was nothing that happened there. There were conversations that Wade had. That's the coach of LSU.
I saw that on that movie. I saw that on the documentary.
He had about other players, but there was nothing. There was no hocus pocus with us. I will even go as far as to share this with you, Mike, because it's years removed. 10 years removed. I've had college coaches offer me money, and I would tell them straight up, that's not what we do. We don't do that. I said, I want you to love my kids. I told you there were certain parameters that I felt were important for college life. Number one, how badly does that school want you? One thing I had to really realize is that kids that play basketball go to college to play basketball. So I wanted to make sure that wherever they were going, that kid was going to play basketball. Perfect example. I loved Phil Martucci at St. Joe's because he kept it straight. He wanted Kenny Grant. When Kenny Grant's grades weren't good enough, He was like, Coach Bright, he's 6'10", 260, his grades, and Kenny wound up getting into Ryder. Okay. But he wanted DeAndre Bembry. And basically, he told me straight up, Eddie, I'm going to recruit this kid. I respected that. Then I had a coach down in Texas said, how much is it going to take, Ed? 50, 60, 70, 80? I was like, Coach, we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't do that. And it was concerning one kid, and that kid, Marcus McDuffie, who you may remember. I'm very close to the McDuffie family. He wound up going to Wichita State. Wichita State. But the parents, when they flew out there, they even got stuck in a snowstorm out there and couldn't get back and forth easily. But they fell in love with Coach Marshall.
Now, this situation right here, what did you feel like it was really about? And do you feel like those brothers that were assistant coaches were the scapegoats in this whole situation?
Well, let's look at it this way. If this happened now, there would be no investigation. It's funny how times change. If a coach called and said, hey, we want to give your son $100 million to come here, there's nothing illegal about that now. Nothing. So think about where it is now. We had a kid, Gary Charles. I don't know if you remember Gary Charles. Gary played for Rutgers Prep. And
the lefty?
Huh?
Was he a lefty?
6'5" kid. Really great kid. Great kid. Beautiful
I know you're talking about.
Smile, beautiful kid.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Went up to Holy Cross, was doing everything up there. And he bet on soccer matches. Ruined his whole college career. They shut him down. That was 7-8 years ago. Nowadays, that'd be nothing. That would have been nothing. So, it's amazing how times could change. Now, I know we're going to talk about NIL, and I've got some mixed feelings about it. But it's funny how things have changed. This would not be an investigation now. It'd be nothing. And there'd be a lot more money involved, too.
Do you think that ban, that stigma or whatever should be lifted off these guys so they could get back into coaching? Because I'm hearing that most of them can't even get a chance to get back into coaching now, man.
Well, listen, I think it's the same for everybody. Once you get that stigma, Pete Rose never got into the Hall of Fame, right? I mean, it's continuous no matter what the sport. Roger Clemens can't get into the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds can't get into the Hall of Fame. So, when people feel that you took advantage or you broke the rules, now we know it's a different standard for us. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's what I was about.
We know it's a different standard for us. But I'm going to say this too. We got to realize it's a different standard for us. I know we're not on here.
Because you knew the game that you was playing.
Listen, man. Listen. Yeah. It's called protocol. You know the protocol. This pigmentation has its privileges and it also has its disadvantages.
All right. Now let's get into some of the players, 4 of the players I picked that impacted Sports U greatly. We're going to talk about them. You're going to tell me, when did you know that they had the potential to be NBA players, and give me some of your best memories of being around each player. Karl Anthony Towns.
The smartest, kindest, thoughtful. I would say one of the smartest, kindest, thoughtful young men I've ever known. Ever. I had a conversation with Kat when he was 15 years old. I forget where we were. We may have been in, as a matter of fact, we were in Little Rock, Arkansas. That year we came in 6th in the nation. He was playing 10th grade in the 8th grade. He is one of the, as a matter of fact, he is the only player in Sports U history that ever played up. Nobody else ever played up. We did not allow anybody to play up. Okay, we didn't give a damn how good you were. You never played up. And so we were in Little Rock, and I said, I always had conversations. Hey, what are you going to do if you don't make it in basketball? What would you like to do? And Karl said, Coach Bright, I want to be a kinesiologist. So I looked at him. I was like, I had to go look it up, Mike. I acted like I knew what he was saying. I had to go look it up. I just got interviewed by the New York Post. The article's online now with the New York Post. It's what shaped Karl Anthony Towns. I had to go look it up. Absolutely brilliant young man. great ball player, but I knew in the 8th grade that he was going to be the number 1 pick.
Why?
Length, commitment to the game, his analytics, his body type. He had a size 19 shoe in the 8th grade, Mike. He had a 42. He has a 42-inch sleeve. Now, extra long is 36, 37. His sleeve is 42.
I remember when he was a baby. Remember when I used to do Metro hoops, he used to be running around with his feet all big like that. How did y'all explain the Under Armour when he signed with a Nike school?
Well, here's what's really funny. Very few people know this. When he first signed with Kentucky, and it came down between Duke and Kentucky, so it was going to be a Nike school regardless. But when he first signed with Kentucky, Under Armour was still making his shoes and sending them to him in Lexington because they didn't make a mold for a 21. Carl used to get his shoes made by Under Armour, and I would get 20 pairs of shoes a month. And Carl would come, and Big Carl and Jackie would come and get his shoes and get clothes.
R.I.P. Jackie, man.
Yes.
That was my girl, man. R.I.P. Jackie, man.
Listen, man. I don't think nobody could have loved Jackie as much as I loved her as a sister. Loved her. No matter what gym you was into, you knew what she was.
100%.
You knew what
and they always sat on opposite sides.
Okay. But, well, yes. Oh, no. Carl at St. Joe's, Carl would sit down there in the end, and Jackie would sit over here on the baseline.
Yep.
And it'd be funny. I'd walk in the gym, and I'd say, hey, Jackie. She said, Ed Bright. I say, hey, Jackie. She said, how's Mary doing? I said, Jackie, my wife's name is Kay. Oh, that's right. And she'd be there with her daughter. But I love Jackie. Jackie would come over to the house and get clothes for Carl. And man.
How happy you are that he playing out here now?
Well, I'm going to be at the game Sunday night. I've got some courtside seats. I'm excited for him. He's changed his game. You can see he's playing like a dog. Okay. You know, he had that rumor that he was a little soft and, that he didn't want to bang. And we all know that they brought in Rudy Gobert to play the 5 so that they could take advantage of his shooting and things like that. But he's playing like a dog right now. And I think that's the mentality of the team. You got OG, you got Brunson, you got some dogs. So when a guy's not a dog, but he's playing with other dogs, you got to get exposed. Yeah, so he's playing with some dogs right now. And his numbers speak for itself. So, listen, can they beat Boston is the key. Can they beat Boston? That's everything's about Boston. And in the NBA season, you don't know how good they're going to be to game 25 anyway. So, we won't know until game 25. Yeah.
All right. Next up, DeAndre Brimby.
Tell you a funny story. I told you Phil Martucci was recruiting him.
You mean Phil Martelli?
Phil Martelli. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Phil Martelli from St. Joe's. And he wound up going to St. Joe's. Phil was recruiting him hard. Everywhere DeAndre was, Phil was there. I don't care where it was. I don't care where it was in America. I don't care where it was in America, Mike. Coach was there. And Fran Dunphy wanted him too. Now, Fran had already gotten Josh from me just a year before. And Essence, DeAndre's mom was like, Eddie, I don't know if I want my son. I don't want everybody to go to Temple. I said, well, I don't have anything to do. And then Rutgers was trying to get DeAndre bad too. I think Mike was still there trying to get DeAndre real, real bad. And I'll never forget this. I said to Fran, why does everybody want DeAndre so bad? They said, because he's a basketball player. Now, I thought all my kids were basketball players. But DeAndre had all those intangibles that, you follow what I'm saying? He understood the game. He had great athleticism. He was and the other thing about him, he was one of the best teammates we ever coached. Anytime Jarrett Nickens was shooting, he'd be like, go, boy, give me one. The way he'd cheer on his other teammates. Now, you got to remember, he's a quintessential ball player. Can jump out the gym, got his big afro going like Dr. J, running down the But he was a great, great teammate, Mike. And that's another quality nobody talks about. because especially in AAU, everybody's out for themselves. Everybody got to get buckets. DeAndre wasn't about that. DeAndre was about winning, and he was a great teammate, and he would lead through the way he played, and he had a motor on him. So, I that's what I'll say. He was not only skilled, he was a tremendous teammate, and he was just a basketball player.
Next, when did you know that he was a pro?
Freshman year at St. Joe's. I wasn't sure about that in high school. Wasn't sure about that in high school. There was a lot of press on him in high school, a lot of press, but I didn't know if he would make it to the association. I didn't know.
I like how you said that, association. I like that. Next up, Wade Baldwin, Dwarf.
I'm going to tell you something about Wade. I thought Wade would be the next Russell Westbrook. I can show you videos of Wade in high school. I knew he would be a pro. I used to tell Big Wade, he's going to be a pro. In sophomore in high school, I'd be like, Wade, that boy's going to make it to the NBA. He'd be like, I don't know Ed Bryant. I don't know Ed Bryant. I said, listen, your son's going to make it to the NBA. You got to remember, he was a first-round draft pick.
I remember.
First-round draft pick out of Vanderbilt. I said, as a sophomore with him and St. Joe's Metuchen, he's going to make it to the NBA. He had all the analytics. He could scratch the back of his ankles without bending over. Okay? That's how long his arms were. He had good bounce. He understood the game. A little selfish at times. It would be about Wade. But you got to remember, he was playing with Carl. He was playing with Marcus Towns. He was playing with good players. But I had and he had a fire in him too. He had a fire. The biggest challenge that Wade had to make in high school was controlling his emotions.
Facts.
That was his biggest challenge, was himself. Was good. I remember we were in what's the guys down in what's the tournament down in Virginia, DC, the big tournament. The guy that has the big facility down there.
Boo Williams?
Boo Williams. We were at Boo Williams playing DC Assault. Big game. Everybody's watching. And he just lost it. And I grabbed him because I would always sit on the end of the bench. I grabbed him like, Wade, what are you doing? And he'd be like, y'all run this program like it's a high school program, like it's a college program. And he just went crazy. And Monica's sitting up in the stands, and she's losing it. She's crying because her son, he got all these college coaches, and her son's losing his cool. And he was able to bring himself back. And Brian was furious. Brian was coaching that team. I think it was the 16U. Brian's coaching him. He was like, get him out of here, Ed Bright. Get him out of here. I don't want him here anymore. And, we had to repair the breach there. But he had all the analytics. He had no lack of skills in any capacity. And he's doing well overseas. I don't know if you know. He's making big money in Israel. I think he's making a few $1 million a year. So he's making big money. Great agent. He's with Mark Bottlestein, great agent who really has great connections over in Europe. And his biggest challenge was always himself. And it looks like he got that when he went to Vanderbilt. Obviously he did well. I think he was the 21st pick in that year's draft. No, he was 20. And DeAndre, we had two kids drafted that year. We had DeAndre and Wade both went in the same draft. So I'm going to say Wade was 19 and DeAndre was 21.
I remember that. Y'all was on top right then when it came to that year. How did it feel that night?
I was there. It was at the Barclays Center. I was there. I was there that night, and I was there the night when Carl was drafted number 1. Brian and I were both there. You're proud, man. You're proud. But Mike, between me and you, I'm proud of Tyon Williams, who works as a computer analyst and is a father and has got 2 kids. You know what I'm saying? I'm proud of all our kids. I'm proud of Tata, that Berno, who is in the military. I'm proud of all our kids. I'm proud. I'm proud of all our kids, man. I'm proud of Lucky Jones, who's a father and a husband, and he plays local in the big league in Branch Brook Park. That's all he's doing, and he coaches some kids. I'm proud of Hallis. I'm proud of Junebug, who's Josh Brown. We call him Junebug. I'm proud. He played overseas for a little while. Now he's back here and he's working and trying to do the right thing with his money. You know what I'm saying? I'm proud of all my kids, man. All of them,
All right, the last one up. Nas Reed.
Well, that's my son. That's my son.
Talk about it.
Hold
on, I gotta share something first. I remember you was definitely influential, and I couldn't say it like you influenced it well when Munch tried to take him.
Oh, yeah.
And I was pissed at Munch going into that 8th grade year because I had everything planned. And then Atiba decides to go over there and do some scan thing. And then next thing I know, Air Bright had to come down to Asbury Park.
Nas, Nas, I couldn't be prouder of him.
All praises.
Yeah. I couldn't be prouder of him. I couldn't be proud of the gentleman that he is. I couldn't be prouder of the way the community in Minneapolis celebrates him. I'm sure you've heard about him. They got banners and people are putting tattoos on their bodies with Nas Reed. I couldn't be more grateful for the way he loved on Rudy Roundtree. I think I told you the story. Nas was living in Asbury Park and he was commuting to Roselle Catholic, and he needed a place to stay so that Boff and everybody didn't have to do this driving back and forth. And Rudy had a young man by the name of Peace Ilagoma, a 6'9" kid from Nigeria who was playing with us as well. He was the 12th man on the 12-man squad. But he said, okay, Nas can stay with me during the week. And initially we were like, okay, we'll all chip in and make sure there's food for Nas and everything that Nas needs to be able to stay here. But at some point, some weeks you miss, and Rudy would come out of his pocket. And it wasn't just Nas, and it wasn't just Peace. He had several kids. He just did good things for. And when Nas decided to go to LSU, he looked at Rudy and he said, Rudy, you coming with me, right? And Rudy had a long career at Exxon. And Rudy took his retirement package and moved with Nas to LSU. And then I was there every step of the way. As a matter of fact, there was a running joke when anybody would see Rudy, they'd be like, "Oh, there's Ed Bright's son," referring to Rudy because Rudy was very close to Nas. And then and you got to remember, Nas didn't get drafted.
I remember.
And that night we had a celebration at the Hard Rock Casino in Atlantic City. We had 2 suites. I won't say who paid for the suites. We had 2 suites. We had his agent there. We were working with Excel, who he is still with. We had Mario Chalmers' dad there, who was his representative for Excel, and he didn't get drafted. And I remember once we got to the 54th pick, I had to drive home. It's like 11 o'clock at night. So I'm driving home and Rudy calls me and says, Ed, what are we going to do? Nas didn't get drafted. I said, okay. I said, well, Nas going to be all right. And then later that night, he got the call from Minnesota, and they offered a lucrative two-way, about $425,000. And then the Summer League came, and I had a conversation with Nas, and I said, listen, man, I need you to go out there and turn that MFer out. And Rudy said the same thing. And Mike, he went out to that Summer League and he turned it out. I mean, he was, he
needed that though.
Brother, but he did it. He did it. And the reason why he didn't get drafted, we found out later, there was some guy going around saying he was part of our party with Nas and he had influence. And the guy was not a good guy, from what I understand. I don't remember the guy's name, but he was trying to get in. So based on the Summer League was when he got that 4-year contract. Not the best contract because it was like 1 million, 1.3.
I remember that.
2.1. And that last year was the club's option, not his option. But he established himself those first 4 years. And so then he got a real contract. So, he's in the tens of millions. He's making whatever, 12, 14. And and this is the second year, and his third year is at his option. Next year is at his option. So you got to remember, he was 6th man of the year last year. He's off to a great start this year. So if things go well and God willing, he stays healthy and his trajectory continues to grow, his next contract, which he'll be able to probably negotiate at the end of this season, will be quite substantial. Quite substantial.
Indeed, and, man. Praises to him. I hope he take care of his money.
You know what? Oh, he's so cheap, man. But he hands you $1, the dollar want to scream, man. He's so cheap. Let me tell you something. Nazi is cheap. Nazi is so cheap. But anyway, I will say this: Rudy became a manager of sorts in Minneapolis. I don't know if you know, Rudy died last year.
Yeah,
he passed from leukemia, and Sheila, his wife, Nas is taking care of her. She's still working with the team that manages Nas's business, and he's taking great care of his mother. He waited till he got his second contract. He's taking great care of his mother and his sister. So Nas I couldn't be more proud, man. I couldn't be more proud.
Man. That's dope.
Couldn't be more proud. Yeah.
Now what about this interesting development? Quinterly retires from basketball?
I don't know. Jaja is older than most. You do know that. He graduated. I don't know if he graduated. He finished at Memphis. He had to be 25, 26 years old. So, maybe he just had some life decisions. I don't know much about it, Mike. I'm not going to speak about something I don't know anything about. I don't know much about it. I saw the announcement. What is funny is probably about 2 months prior, I was trying to reach Luther Muhammad. I think Luther's in Finland or some country over there. Because I was reaching out to Luther, saying, Luther, where's Javon? Where is he? I figured he would be playing somewhere pro around the planet. If not, obviously here or in the G League. And Luther didn't get back to me. And then a couple of months later, I see the retirement and I'm going in another direction. He got some money, he got some NIL money. I don't know if you and I both know it's not enough to carry him the rest of his life. But he says he got some money, so I don't know what happened there. His father is Mark is as solid a human being as there is. Mark is a correction officer.
So I remember him.
He comes from great stock. So I'm not really sure. I saw him at Rudy's funeral, which was last year. We had a funeral at Community Baptist Church in Inglewood, where I actually serve on the clerical staff. But I saw him there, and he was happy to see me, and I was happy to see him, very happy. And I don't think we exchanged numbers, and I'm not really sure what happened, Mike.
I just know when it comes to this kind of thing, the psychology part plays a part in what these kids go through. If you had hopes on being in a certain place and doing a certain thing, the psychology comes into it when those dreams don't seem like they're gonna come to fruition. And a lot of people don't really talk about that part of it. You get what I'm saying? A kid like him that had a lot, earned a lot, but achieved a lot early in his career and kept going and going and going. And then you get to this point to where my dream was to be in the NBA, and that don't seem like that's going to happen psychologically. I remember I had a couple of people I interviewed, and I remember Shep Gardner was one of them. And I asked them, like, how was it when you had to go back to a regular life? And he said, I didn't know what else to do because I never had a regular life.
That's right. You want to know something? Yeah. Well, I'll take it from another perspective as well. Very few people realize that these kids are human beings. They see them as entertainers. They don't want them to have an opinion on anything. I remember when LeBron said something and Megyn Kelly said, just shut up the ball and shut up and dribble the ball. So no one is sensitive to these kids. No one is sensitive to even a kid like a Nazi or a tall kid and the struggles. You know this better than I. Tall kids, what they go through, the expectation. You must play basketball. Or if you're not good, they want to categorize you as a bum or this, that, and the other, because we all know big men develop slower. Now they're developing better because skills are important no matter your size. But no one realizes that these kids are human beings. They just see them as entertainers that can wow them with a jump shot or a steal or a dunk. And these kids have demands on them at a very young age now.
Exactly.
Very young, man. There are kids now in the 6th and 7th and 8th grade getting NIL money. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right now. How are you a kid in the 7th grade living in Baltimore that ain't never had jack? How you gonna sign a contract to give him $1,000 a month to play basketball?
We about to get to that. We about to get to that. We're gonna get to that, and we're gonna dig in. We're gonna definitely dig into that. Now I want to talk about have a little fun, brother. Give me sports you all-time starting 5.
Ooh. All right. Well, I'm gonna start out with a guy that did not play with us a lot. I took him to Iceland when he was 16 years old. He played with us in IS-8 and some other tournaments part-time. He was full-time with another group, but his dad really liked him playing with us. So I'd start with Kyrie.
Okay.
Kyrie, and I'm sure Brian may have told you. Kyrie was a sports kid.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll start with Kyrie. Then I'm gonna take a kid that you mentioned and you had up here because he could fit in with any team and be great, and that would be DeAndre Bembry.
Okay.
Then I'm gonna put obviously Karl Anthony Towns.
Okay.
You know you're gonna get me in trouble with this, right? Anybody sees this, I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna put in a kid who a lot of people don't talk about, but he had a love for the game that is insatiable, and he's doing great over in Italy. And he is just one of the most amazing young men off the court and on the court. So, I try to factor in some other things that I think are important. And that would be Marcus McDuffie.
Okay. You got one more.
I can't do 6?
No.
All right. Ooh. Wow. See, I can name 3, but I got to choose one. So, Spencer Wise. We call him Swoosh. Spencer Wise.
Why?
Brilliant basketball player. Smart. You know who he would remind you of if you even watched his game now over with Maccabi Tel Aviv? He'd remind you of Bill Bradley. Now you got to have some basketball history to even understand.
I know you're talking about.
He would remind you of Bill Bradley. Spencer Wise. We call him Swoosh. Now, if you let me run, I could go Josh Brown, Wade.
Yeah, I know. I wanted that 5.
Gave me 5. So
okay. Next up, best sports you player of all time.
Wow. Wow. You're gonna man. Ooh. Karl Anthony Towns.
Why?
Basketball player. He's accomplished the most out of the program. 3-time All-Star. Knows how to play on a big platform. Great personality, smart. Able to handle the success well to date.
Yeah.
I think is important.
Yeah.
He's handling that being on a big platform. A lot of people can't play in New York, man.
I know. That's why I want to see how this plays out. I want to see.
You and I both know if he don't step up and come through at any point, in New York they'll love you one day and chase your ass out of town.
All facts. Facts.
I had a guy in my program who worked with us for a while, and we used to go places, and the stuff people would say to him used to break my heart. I had Daryl and Charles Smith working with us at one point. They would crucify Charles. Man, how did you not dunk the ball? How you get your shot blocked like that all those times? I mean, it was no one would give him credit that he was Pitt's all-time leading scorer, that he was the second pick in the draft. You know, no, he was an Olympian. Nobody gave him credit for that. Just that one moment in time. You remember the moment at the
against the Bulls.
And Charles is one of the smartest, most brilliant brothers that I've ever met in my life. He's a genius. He is a genius in business and commerce and enterprise. And I remember we were at a steakhouse, at an old Homestead Steakhouse, and man, I lost money on you. We're sitting at dinner. I'm like, come on, man. You follow what I'm saying? So
yeah,
it's. But I would go with Cat. I'll give Cat that.
Okay. Now think about this one: New Jersey high school basketball, Mount Rushmore of all time that you've seen. You get 4 slots.
Ooh.
It don't got to be Sports U. Just New Jersey high school basketball, Mount Rushmore that you've seen.
Kyle Anderson. Karl Anthony Towns. Kyrie. I'm going to take you way back with this one. Kelly Tripucka.
You're in North Jersey. No DeJuan Wagner in there?
I didn't see him a lot. He's a scorer.
Listen, I got you. Hey, the ones you got, I can't. You got 4 pros. I can't say nothing about your list, bro.
Listen. I ain't mad at DeJuan. I ain't mad at Wagner or his father, Milt. I ain't mad at either. I know them both. I know them both. But very few people realize just how great Kelly Tripucka was. Kelly was bad.
No, I heard.
Ooh, Kelly was a bad. Listen, I can tell you a kid nobody's ever heard of, that if you saw him play, there was nobody ever like him. His name was Cleveland Eugene, the scoring machine out of East Orange High School.
I never heard of him before. Wow.
You got to be around a little. I mean, I'm in my 60s. No one. Kenny Young. I could name some kids. Nobody ever. Lou Grimsley.
Yeah, I remember him coaching. At Shabazz, they used to dress fly.
Listen, I'll give you another one. You may never heard of him. His name was Grover Wooler at a Central High School in Newark. 6'7", 2-guard. Went to the Lakers. Couldn't keep everything. Listen, I'll really crack your head wide open. Gary Garland, Whitney's brother. He was on the Final Four with Clyde Bradshaw and Mark Aguirre. Okay. Gary should have been in the Hall of Fame. Gary would have made it to the Hall of Fame, but he liked to smoke some things from time to time.
Now you've been trying to get at this subject all night, so let's get into it, man. The NIL, man. I have my feelings about it, but I want to hear yours, man. What do you think about it?
Do I think it's right that these universities are profiting off these kids and sports, whether it's basketball, football, whatever it may be? No. Do I think that these kids should be being paid the sums of money that they're being paid? Hell no.
Why not?
Because I don't know if the ability for them to manage it and to keep their eyes on the other benefits are there. For example, I've always believed that you go to college to find out who you are and discover who you can be. I've also realized, and I also told all my kids this from Sports U, whatever school you go to, I want you to create 5 great relationships. And I want each one of those 5 to have nothing to do with basketball. Nothing to do with basketball. Now, why do I say that? Number one, because the ball's going to stop bouncing. Number 2, if you're at Rider University, which Kenny Grant was at, okay, and I had another kid that went there. I can't remember his name. But if you're at Rider and you have 5 great relationships, those 5 college graduates are going to be typically doing great things right here in the state of New Jersey.
All facts.
So I always believe that at some point, you may be a kid out of Newark. At some point in your life, you are going to move back within 50 miles of where you grew up. That's just a
Mm.
fact. That's a
Mm-hmm.
fact.
Mm-hmm.
So your 5 relationships are what you're going to lean on.
Mm.
How many times, and I also said this to all my kids, when I'd go down the Ryder and visit Kenny Grand, or I'd go and visit one of my kids, I say, tell me who your friends are. I'd say, tell me who your friends are and tell me what's the last book that you read.
Mm.
I ain't got time to read no books, Coach Bright. I you need to read a book. You need to read a book once a month.
Mm.
Just to change your vocabulary, to quiet you down, and to learn. And then those 5 relationships, show me who, listen, you know this. You've seen it, Mike. Tell me who your friends are, and you're going to go as far as your friends go.
Facts.
Fact. So if your friends are 5 other basketball players and none of them are going to make it, where you going to go?
Wow.
No, I was adamant about that. I'd say it right in front of their parents. If I told you how many times Sandy McDuffie, Marcus McDuffie's, and Marcus will say, man, I wish you never said that 5 P's, proper preparation. My mom would tell me that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's true. Preparation is what gets you there. And then when you play the game is fun. You see great basketball teams, it's in the preparation. And that's contiguous in every aspect of your life. So I would tell them, make 5 great friends. Also, you heard me say earlier, I like Fran Dunphy. Why did I like Temple? Because it was a great program. It was a safe place. I knew that Fran loved those kids. And I knew that if a kid got in trouble, he would love on that kid. He would love on that kid. And if the kid was in trouble, I could be there within 65 minutes and put my foot up their ass.
Mm.
So I'm not big on NIL. The money they're throwing around is ridiculous. Now, if they want to do it, you get the money when you leave the college.
That's what I said. I'm
going to give you an allowance.
I said, pull it up, and then when they leave, because I feel that the morals, the whole fabric of just being, everything is getting lost in terms of chasing this money, and then what happens is the values are going to waste. So now you're getting these kids, it's just baby moms over here and this and blah blah blah, and then the parents can't tell them nothing because they making more than the parents.
That's
so
right.
now it's just the values and everything is getting lost over this money.
That's right.
You get what I'm saying? I didn't. That's the part that I didn't like. Now you got the college coaches quitting, and I get it. Like it's like some of the legendary coaches starting to step down. You just had the guy Jay Wright step down, the coach from Virginia step down, and I can imagine how hard it is trying to control this thing now.
Of course. Well, let's now, before NIL, the coaches were the ones that would do anything to get a kid because they wanted to keep making their $3 million a year. Let's not forget that. Now you got the kids making more than the coach. So the same problem that you have in the pros, that's why not just anybody can coach these kids in the pros, because you're trying to tell a kid what to do, stay up in his ass and keep him playing right. And then the kid's going out and hopping in his Bentley Bentagnia, his $200,000 vehicle, going to his penthouse, and he got 3 chicks waiting for him tonight. How you going to coach that? So only certain coaches can coach in the pros. Now you're giving these kids in college $1 million a year to play at Kentucky, to play at Arkansas, to play at Villanova. You can't keep up with that. You can't keep up with that. So I agree with you. You get the money. I'm going to give you an allowance. I'll give you $2,000 a month. I'll give you $2,000 a month, and you get food and blah blah blah. They listen. They be doing that anyway before NIL.
All facts.
You didn't need NIL to do that. They was doing that anyway. You and I both know the deal. But give them $2,000 a month. Okay, if they want to have a car, give them a car. You pay for that. You don't have to pay for the car, but you get your gas, your insurance, everything. Teach them how to pay some bills, and then at the end, when you decide to leave, yeah, you got all that money is sitting there. If it's $1 million, you got it. $500,000, you got it.
Facts.
You got it. And that also causes the kid to look and say, okay, is it time for me to leave? Because if I got $500,000 waiting, that ain't enough. So a coach can still coach a kid and say, listen, you got to give me another year and I can get you ready for the draft. Or I can get you to where you can play somewhere on the planet.
Got that. Next up, transfer portal.
You know that's a product of AAU, right, Mike?
Talk to me.
Well, think about it. How many kids did I have? One week they with me, and next week they playing with the players.
100%. I said that it's turning.
Next week they playing with Team Rio, and next week they playing with the Wind. And next week they playing with what's the team down in Delaware? We Are One. And the next week they're with New Heights. And the coaches will take them because they all fighting for talent because they want to keep their sneaker deals. You got to remember that it's a business. It's all about the product.
Now, with the transfer portal, what the part that I want to get from you is who is using it more, the players or the coaches? Are coaches forcing kids into this?
No, but don't think any kid is going into the portal and somebody ain't already had a conversation with where he's going next. I don't believe a kid's just saying, man, I'm tired, man. I want to get out of here, man. Coach ain't treating me right. And I'm just gonna go out there and I'm gonna see who I can get to. I don't believe that for a minute. I don't believe that. I believe that when a kid says I'm going into the transfer portal, he already knows where he's going. And they don't already cut the deal.
What about the coach who he's playing for now? You don't think the coach tell him like, yo, I'm not playing you next year, you might as well go in?
I think that can happen. Sure, your kids get recruited over, depending upon the program. But you got to listen. That's your fault. That's the player and the parents' fault if that happens.
All right, explain.
Well, because what do we always tell the kids? You go where you're the most wanted. You don't go to Maryland because I want to play. It's been my dream to play at Maryland, and they're recruiting me. No, I want the Maryland coach sitting up in my house every week. I want the assistant coaches at every one of my son's games. I want them making sure that we know everything that we're going to be getting there. I want to make sure that he's telling me how many. I remember, what's the coach that was at Providence that's at Georgetown now? Ed.
I know you're talking about.
Well, what's Ed's last? Ed Cooley.
Yeah, Cooley.
Ed wanted Josh Brown and Hallis because Josh decommitted from Temple for a while. So I put him in my car and I took Josh and Hallis up to Rhode Island. When we finished visiting Rhode Island, I took them that afternoon to Providence. I'll never forget Ed and Andre LaFleur was his assistant coach. And Ed told Josh right out, he said, son, I want you, and I'm guaranteeing you 30 minutes a game. He didn't pull no punches. Now, I also know he wanted them because he wanted to over-recruit Danny Hurley, who was down the road at Rhode Island. But he told him straight up, that's what you want to hear. Not only did he tell him I'm playing 30 minutes, he told him how I'm going to play you, what you're going to learn, what your itinerary is going to be. You know, we'll make sure we get your parents up here for games, blah, 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 blah. You got a lot of kids go places because you know what? It's been my dream to play at Villanova. Negro, it ain't your dream. What's the kid? We got a kid now. I forget his name, but he went to Villanova. It ain't working out, and now he's somewhere else. Okay.
So you talking about what's his name?
You got Javon. You got Javon. Javon went to Villanova. From Villanova to Alabama, from Alabama to Memphis. Okay? You got to know where you're going. And it sounds really exciting if you can say, I'm going to this big name school with this big program that's won national titles and this, that, and the other. Parents have got to be realistic, and coaches have got to be realistic too. And let me say this too, Mike. Sometimes a coach will recruit a kid hard just because he wants to show that somebody else in that conference is trying to get that kid.
You talking about Trey Patterson?
Trey, yeah, I think he went to it. I think he's somewhere else now.
Yeah, he went to Villanova. Now he go to Rice.
Okay. Yeah. So sometimes the match ain't right. The match ain't right. It ain't right. And it may not be the parents' fault. Maybe the kid's fault. Hey, I know I can go there and I can play. I know I can play. You gotta remember this too. If let's say Shah get somebody a Seton Hall. Okay? That means everybody in that conference wants that kid because nobody wants to look bad for somebody getting a kid that they should have got. Now here Shaw gets this kid. He's tremendous. And then St. John's and Georgetown and everybody else is like in, Dayton. I'm like, yo, how come we didn't get that kid? We didn't know about that kid? Give you a perfect example. Look at Nas Reed. He didn't get drafted. Nas didn't get drafted. He was the 6th man of the year. How many coaches in the NBA look like idiots for not bringing in and drafting Nas Reed? And he was supposed to be drafted. He was supposed to be somewhere between 19 and 50. We were told that.
Speaking of getting drafted, I saw your thoughts on this, so I had to throw this on here. Bronny James on the Lakers.
As a father, I think it's amazing that LeBron as a father has been able to have his son travel with him and be on the team. As a black man, I think it's impressive that a black man has that much influence that he can have a franchise, one of the most historic franchises in all of sports. All of sports. You got to remember, the guy whose insignia is on the association's label is Jerry West from the Los Angeles Lakers. You're talking about Elgin Baylor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson. I mean, Worthy. I mean, you can go right down the line. Tremendous franchise, tremendous historical franchise. So as a black man, I think it's incredible. But as a basketball person, I think that's a joke. As a basketball person, you and I know how hard these kids have had to work all their lives to even just make $35,000 a year in the G League. Hope for a chance to come up to the big club, for someone to get injured or whatever, for them to get some minutes and maybe turn their contract into a 10-day or something. And this kid, in my opinion, looks like some little white kid from Livingston, New Jersey. He don't even belong at that level. He ain't got nothing to offer. He ain't got nothing to offer. And I think it's a travesty. And I'm going to tell you this too. You notice they ain't letting him play no away games with the G League team. You saw that, right?
I know. I talked about it. I thought it was because of security measures.
Hell no. It's because those kids on the G League and those players on other teams in the G League are going to wear his ass out. If I'm on the G League, okay, and I know I can go, and I know I deserve to be up with the big club, and you bring in this kid, and I'm making $75,000 a year, just getting by, and you bringing him in and you gave him a $7.9 million contract, every chance I get to go against him, I'm going to wear his ass out.
All facts.
I'm going to wear his ass out.
All facts.
I think Nate is with the Lakers, right? And Eli Kane. Eli, who played with me, Eli Kane, and Nate Pierre-Louis, they're both with South Bay. And Nate can defend. I guarantee if Nate's still on that club, he's weighing his ass out. And Eli can go. Eli was one of the best basketball players we ever had. You could not speed him up. You couldn't speed him up. He did his thing, and he had a nice yo-yo, and he did his thing. You could not speed him up. Good ball player. I think he went to Marquette. I think Eli, did he go to Marquette or?
Eli Kane, I think he went to DePaul.
DePaul. I knew it was one of the other.
Yeah.
Okay. Good ball player. Good ball player. Eli played with us.
Now we coming to the end. I saved a couple of things for the end because they was real great value to you. You know what I mean? In the beginning, I showed a picture of you, Dal Dawkins, and Brian Coleman. You lost two of your brothers, man, and with that starting thing, you the lone survivor right now. You know what I'm saying? And I want to put each person up, and I want you to really talk about what their relationship meant to you. You know what I'm saying? And by the time they was here, man. So first we're gonna start with Daryl Dawkins.
I love Daryl Dawkins. Daryl was the most generous, funniest, kindest, loving giant I've ever met in my life. We used to go places, Mike, and we could not get out of the place because Daryl, well, two things. And Daryl had a memory that was like a computer. Somebody would come up to Daryl and they say, "Hey, I met you." And Daryl would say, "Yeah, I met you back in 1978 at such and such and such an event at Bing, 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 Bing." Daryl could make everyone he met feel so damn special.
Wow.
And then we would be places and everybody would be crowding him. And I would act like I was his agent. I'd be like, "Mr. Dawkins, we've got to go now. We've got to go." No, that's what I would do to get him out of places. He would not say no, not say no to a picture or a few minutes. And he remembered everybody.
Wow.
Everybody.
Wow.
Everybody.
Wow.
I was devastated when he passed. So his son is the starting center for Penn State.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Nick Dawkins, he's number 53. He's the starting center for Penn State. Hopefully he'll be able to make it to the L, but he is the starting center for Penn State. Nick Dawkins. Wow. Oh yes. Daryl was just amazing. I was blessed, Mike. I've been blessed with people in my life I do not deserve. I don't deserve them. And what he did as the ambassador of our program, he put us on the map overnight. Imagine walking into a sponsorship meeting, and I'm there with one of the most colorful, famous figures on the planet, with the same robust, loving personality. who wasn't going to give us some money?
That's dope, man.
And he would talk about Ed wants to do this for the kids, and this is what we want to do for the kids. And there's nobody we ever met with that did not want to give us some level of sponsorship.
Okay. All praises, man. Next up.
Yeah.
Brian Coleman.
That's a great picture.
Yeah.
Brian was brilliant. Brian was a king.
I know.
Brian was a king. We use that term very loosely now. We call each other kings. Yo, king. What's up, king?
Mm-hmm.
Brian really was a king. Multi-talented. I used to think he had two personalities. I'm glad both of them put up with me.
Mm-hmm.
Fiery, gifted, loving, loved the kids of Jersey City, especially where he grew up. Disciplined in his own way.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, he would keep me disciplined. And he brought a lot of good into the world, man. In a very short time, brought a lot of good into the world. And we had, no matter what, we would fight like cats and dogs, but we had a tremendous appreciation for each other.
I remember how me and him met over a crazy phone call. I was having a tournament, and I was dealing with Reg. I had never dealt with him before. And it was a scheduling situation or something like that. And he called me, and he wanted something to get done. And he was talking slick to me. And I had never talked to him on the phone before. And I'm like, yo, who's this dude? So we both talk junk to each other. We both get off the phone, and both of us call Reggie. Yeah. And then Reg told both of us the same thing. One day, y'all just alike. If y'all get to know each other, y'all gonna be the best of friends. And I'm gonna tell you, Ed, for maybe the past 9 years before he died, 10 years, man, B was tight, man.
Yeah, he told me that.
We used to talk on the phone all the time, bro. He was there through a lot of that stuff I went through with that case, through my alcoholism, through like just being on the phone with me, talking to him, man. And the Spirit told me too, he was my first podcast guest.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, you got to get him on. You know what I mean? And when he got on, being able to tell his story, And now I thank the Most High that his family could listen to him talk about what he loved and see him talking about it for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Anytime they want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he just was that kind of guy, man, that he was gonna tell you how he really felt about the situation.
No doubt. No doubt. Good, bad, or different. And it didn't mean that he didn't love you. It's just that
he wasn't gonna change on his stance. And I remember it wasn't when he was coaching Nazi and them when I saw him as happiest. I saw him as happy as the squads after them. When he had the other kids that came after them, that wasn't the ones that had the names when Elliot and them was young. Sure. And then he had a couple older kids like his son and them age, that team. And they was in Atlantic City and they was young and they was scrappy and he had them balling. Yeah. And I looked at him. I said, this is your element. And he said, you know it, bro.
This is. Yeah.
This is what I love to do. I love these kind of kids to really not that he ain't have love for them other ones, but that type of group right there, because he got them to that bar.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? You know
we were in a tournament. It was up in Westchester County, and we won the tournament. It was the Rumble in the Bronx. We won the tournament, and he had to fight everything to win that game. And we won it on a tip-in, a follow-up tip-in. And I remember the way his body just relaxed after we won. And I looked at him, I said, Brian, this is one of your finest. I used to always say this is one of your finest hours. You were brilliant. Like I would compliment him that way because I knew, first of all, the work he put in. And you would see the fruition of that work, the manifestation of all that work in the gym. And how the changes, and I forget, we had some people that were hurt. I think Nate Pierre-Louis was hurt, Marcus was hurt, McDuffie, and we still won it. And I never forget the way his body relaxed. And then I remember when he first got sick, and we were supposed to go to a tournament. I think we were going to Indiana, somewhere weird. And he showed up late to the airport because he was getting all those stomach pains, and we didn't know what it was. And the way he fought through that, because you gotta remember they operated on him multiple times. I mean, when you saw him at the end, he had lost over 100 pounds. Didn't even look like the same person. But he fought through that like a king. He fought through it. Through it. And Carissa by his side, and Malik and Momo, you know, he's a good brother, man. Good brother, man. Like I said, I've had people come in my life and bless me better than I deserve. No question about it, you know. So
yeah, I got something for you, man. Got to see our boy go hard a couple times.
Don't fade away. Go strong and get started. You got me? Let's go. These guys ain't nothing. Let's go. Go strong to the rim. Don't fade away. Go strong and get started. You got me? Let's go. These guys ain't nothing. Let's go.
Yeah. That right there symbolizes it, man.
Yeah, man.
That right there symbolizes it right there, man.
Yeah, man.
I know hearing that voice, man. I know how it touched you because it touched me.
Man.
Yeah, I cried hard after my boy died, man. That was my dude. Now, man, to sum it up, man, I always ask this question to all my guests. Give me a situation that you feel that God pulled you through so you could be a testimony for others.
Well, you know, I had a very successful radio career at one time, Mike, and I've shared this publicly. And I developed a very serious drug addiction to crack cocaine. Very serious. And it took me places I'd never thought I'd go. You know, I was raised in a good home. My father owned businesses. I had my mom and my dad. I was educated. I was in the Marine Corps. And I thought I had all the ingredients to do well in life. So a lot of my doing Sports U was a way for me to show my gratitude through the game of basketball that I love. And if somebody would have told me that, we could build this type of program and have the success that we had, and a lot of the kids or men now that we've shown over the last couple hours, I would have said it wasn't possible. But I think the gratitude in my life is what made it so that, I just really wanted to do this. And I remember when this first started, and I've shared this with a couple of people, I was on the deck in the back of my yard, and I heard a very small voice that said, "This is for you." I heard that little small voice. A lot of people may not believe in that, but I know that was God.
I know that voice. I know that voice.
Mike, he said, this is for you. I'm giving this to you. This is yours. And then he brought all the angels, Daryl and Brian and Joel and Frank and Reggie and France Pierre Louise and Cess and Eric, and I can go right down the line. He brought all these angels, and they believed in the vision. It was a collective vision. You know what I'm saying? That we could do something different. And yeah, you've shown it. We had the players, and we had New Heights we had to compete with, and we had the Gauchos, and I can go right down the line. We had them all. We had to compete with, and it was like and people will tell you to this day, we came out of nowhere. If you looked at the landscape, it was the players, it was Gary Charles and his program, it was the Wrens, it was New Heights, it was the Gauchos, it was the Roadrunners. We came out of nowhere. But I always said, if you do things right, you can be successful. And we did things different. Whether anybody believes it or not, we did things different. You can go online now. You can go Team Izod YouTube, and you'll see all types of workshops and seminars and award dinners, all different types of things that I wanted to do for these kids. So number one, they knew they were loved. And number two, they knew that it was more than basketball, but I wanted to make sure we won basketball games. Let's not get it twisted. I wanted to make sure we were the last one standing with that trophy on Sunday.
Indeed, brother.
And we did that. But we also, like I said, I'm so proud, man. I can give you over 100 kids that are doing things in life. Praises,
So Ed, I want to thank you for coming on, brother. And you touched so many lives. I want to give you your flowers and let you know that you're a legend, brother.
Mike, listen, you created that platform, okay? You created that platform, and your place was the place to be. Basketball Spotlight, that was the place to be. And you did it with class. You had great referees. You started things on time. You did it, man. You didn't take no shorts on no money either, because I tried to short you a couple of times. You wasn't nobody short shit. I'd be like, yo, Mike, I know I've got 3 teams in, so that's $1,500, Mike. Let me give you 12. I'm gonna hit you with 3. You'd be like, oh hell no, Ed Bright, no, I gotta need my money. I'd be like, yeah, Mike. So I'm letting you know that you didn't take no shorts, all right? No shorts. I'm gonna let you know that. I'd be like, Mike, I got 3 teams in. You'd be like, yo, Ed Bright, I can't. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a $50 break. I'm like, what? I'm like, damn, Mike, you only gonna give me $50? Huh?
Man, it was some great times, man, and having these times now let me appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir. Well,
I'm gonna thank you for coming on, brother. I'm gonna send you the YouTube version. It's already, as we was doing it, I had put it on your Facebook page, so it was already on your Facebook page. And then I'll be putting up these clips. You're probably gonna get tired of me putting up the highlight clips, man.
I appreciate you, Mike Melton. God bless. Man. God bless.
All right. God bless, Ed. That was Ed Bright, man. We had a good time tonight. Thank you for tuning in to In the Spotlight Podcast, episode 42. Stay tuned next week as we come on with another special guest, man. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in again. This is Mike. Enjoy the rest of your night. Shalom.